Okay, well, if you are joining right now and you are on Facebook, make certain that you come over to the YouTube channel for 5x5 News. And that way, if you want to join in the comments, you can do so, because for some reason, the comments from Facebook do not transfer over here. So I'll wait just a second here, and we'll make sure everybody gets in. Okay, so again, if you're joining us, if you're on Facebook, make certain that you come to the 5x5 News channel if you want to join in. You can watch on Facebook, but you will not be able to communicate back and forth. So you'll need to come on to YouTube. So just hit the 5x5 News link. I'll try to put that in there as well. But just go to 5x5 News in YouTube, and it should show you that we are live. And we'll get started here in just a moment here. I'm going to let a few people get in, and I'm going to load up some stuff in the background as well. If you can hear my voice clearly, type in the letters 5x5, just so I can make sure I hear you, or that you hear me, or something like that. And we'll add something to the background here. So as we wait here just a moment while everybody loads in, because the software that we use does not send out this 2-minute warning, which makes it a little bit more difficult at times, but it does work out okay. And if you want to come on the show, just hit the link that I sent out earlier. If I need to send that again, I'll put that in here. And we will do that. And our man of the hour, let's see, I'm trying to figure out which image of this dude. Let's do something a little less flattering. Let's see. Let's find a low flattering image of him. This will work. So make that one of the backgrounds there. And I'll shrink this to here. And we'll go there. Okay. So if you're just now joining us, hey Debbie, hey Jeff, hey Nick, hey CL. And I'm going to post a link in here for those that are in the other area. So I need to go grab this. So bear with me just a second while I do that, because YouTube is wanting to be a pain as usual. Make sure this is working properly, and it's obviously not. So I'll do it with the phone. Give me just a moment. Okay. Okay, about a 5-second delay, as I can tell. And I post this real quick, so give me just a second. And there we go. And let's post the other one there later. Okay, so here's what the deal is on this character here. Shannon Dale Chamlies is a person I've been chasing for quite a while. He's somebody I've been tracking for quite a bit. And see, Edward popped in there. And let's get some people from that group in here. And you got 72 messages on that one. Hang on just a second. And I'm sure Shannon will actually watch this as well. So, hey, Shannon, you're welcome to come on here too. I think, is it safe to say that a complaint filed by SlideFire Solutions was tacked on to the original lawsuit by the Phippen family? You already said it. I'm not that familiar with that one, so I mean, I can't say it. You can say whatever you want. But but you already said it. So since you're saying it, but is it safe to say? I wouldn't say that at this moment because I don't know. And just so everybody knows, this particular show at this time is about Shannon Dale Chamlies. He's a guy I've been chasing for a long time. I'm going to try to get his image here up on the screen and get some of these other people here. Give me just a second while I hit this other thing, because this link on one computer doesn't work, but it does on the other, and I don't know why it does one and not the others. There we go. And in typical fashion, StreamYard doesn't like it when you use a phone. So that's me popping in on myself. I'm going to turn the volume down. Go down and grab this link. Copy. Copy, go here, and go over here. I guarantee you that most of the other people are just watching on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you will not be able to talk, and we will not be able to hear you. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching this, all you're going to be able to do is kind of watch it. If you want to interact, ask questions, talk, say something about what's going on, you'll need to do so over on YouTube. I'm trying to post the link over there, but for some reason, YouTube is giving me a pain in the butt. It wants me to get YouTube Premium and all these other things, but it won't give me this link. Now I got the link. There we go. And every time I hit Facebook, it opens up YouTube for some reason. All right. Okay, there we go. So anyway, so this guy, Shannon Dale Chamlies, what he does is he will go around and pretend to be this world famous tattoo artist, which he's not, but he claims that he is. And he will try to get women to do tattoos with him. He will put out some feeler message on one of his channels or what have you, or over on Facebook or Instagram or what have you, enticing women to, or men too, to do a tattoo. And before he goes, he will tell that person to give him a deposit of $100, $200, $300, whatever, to hold a seat. And then he never shows up. And if he does show up, it's only because he needed to do one or two real things periodically to keep up his fake game. And that's how he does this. And I'm trying to get the screen to change over, but for some reason it doesn't want to do that. So we'll do a screen share, and I'll do a tab, and we will show who this guy is. Oh, that's a terrible shot. And let's go into the victims. Not victims, we'll go here. Shannon is famous in the Arkansas area. He is a wanted absconder. So if you actually search for his name, Shannon Dale Chamlies, you will come up with all kinds of information. Some of it was put out by myself. Some of it was put out by the Arkansas Department of Corrections. And some has been put out by a person who has passed on by the name of Ryan Conklin. And I promised Ryan that I would take over chasing this guy down, because he has hurt many of both of our friends. And that makes him pretty much what he is. So I'll get this over here. And wow, click that and it shows the live. That's amazing. That was pretty quick. So we're going to do this and share the screen so I can show you what I'm looking at. So share screen. Put the audio. I don't need the audio. And YouTube and Kevin Williams. And there we go. Okay, so we should be sharing that screen. Let me go up here and make double sure. Looks like we are. And back here. Okay, so this is Shannon. Back in the day, he went by the name of Kevin Williams. He's used various names over the years and what have you, but Kevin Williams, Jake Dale, Jakob Dale, Dale Jacob, Dale Chamlies, Jakob Chamlies. you name it, he's used it. He's used his son's name quite a few times and various other names. He constantly goes by a different name, and he's basically trying to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. And that's just what he does. So as he does this, what happens is he ends up with some huge issues. And the issues that he has, if we go back in time, I'll scroll this right here and I'll see how much of a delay I have. And for some reason, it's showing that as a background, but that's okay. Let me go back here. I'm going to change this to full screen so it can be seen. And let's see here. That one right there. Okay, so it should be full screen now. So I'll go back over here. So if you can see real close, I don't know if this is close enough. Let me get a little closer, make it bigger. Shannon was actually wanted back quite a few years ago, and he was using a fake identity as a police officer to stop a car and to do various things to the occupant of the car to convince the occupant of the car to have sex with him. And that is considered rape. So he was actually charged with rape and various other crimes here, as you can see, a small claims judgment, civil things. He's a small-time criminal, but the problem with this guy is he's constantly out there doing all these little crimes, and the numbers are just staggering. It's in the hundreds of people that he's basically screwed over. And this is run somebody else's page, but they had a little fun with him as far as some of the stuff that they put on here. But that's him. That's what he looked like back in the day. He doesn't look like that now. He looks a little squirrely now, but he would obviously argue that. But I'm going to stop this here and go back over to this screen and get back to the beginning. So what's going to happen is this. The guy is a complete scumbag. He just is. I can say that's my opinion or whatever, but that's going to be the opinion of a lot of people. And he is having issues as we speak, which is why I'm going live right now. And I'm going to go ahead and reveal his location because I've changed my mind on how I'm going to handle him. And we're just going to announce each and every time he shows up somewhere. And I will show his location here in just a second. We'll do a little spiral in on it. And I'll do this out here. We'll use my new hot little tool here. And then I'll bounce over to it. And take down to one screen here. And let's change this to 2 minutes. Let's do 120. And you guys will get to see this. You get to see the thing I showed you the other night. And this is the reason why I'm using this tool. I'm kind of giving you a preview of what the shows will be like down the road when I'm actually not maneuvering around trying to get to Las Vegas and to Florida and to Texas and all these other different states. And I might even end up in Chicago for some reason. But that's, let me change the time of day here. There we go. Give me just a moment. I'm going to make this other screen so we can actually see where Shannon is right now. Change the field of view out a little bit. And we'll go down to 1000. And if anybody wants to come on the show, if you can hear me, especially if you're over on the other side there, if you're on Facebook, let me share this screen here. Give me just a second here. And I'm trying to see some familiar names from that side. I'm not seeing too many. It's mostly the Las Vegas crowd. So I'll get in the Las Vegas thing here as soon as we finish this here. But let's get the application window. We're going to go to Chrome tab, this one here, and share. Okay, so basically where he's at is in Chicago and near the Humboldt Park area. And this is going to zoom in on about where he is. I'm not going to reveal the exact address. Hopefully it doesn't show that because that might be an invasion of privacy. But I'll give you an idea of the location of where he's at. He likes to hang out at a McDonald's that's right near him. He tends to want to meet people there for whatever reasons, and that's just Shannon. So we're going to fly in here around sunset. It's a little dark here. I can probably change that time. Let's change the time to a different time. I'm going to go to 0000. Here, it's a little brighter. And I will zoom in a little quicker here. But this is the area that he's in. It's not like the best area of town, but it's, it is what it is. But he's hanging out in one of these little flats here. You'll see the McDonald's right there in the background. And this is the area that he hangs out. So you have 64th on one side, you got Spalding on the other, and that's the area. So if you're in the Chicago area and you have been a victim of Shannon Dale Chamlies, aka Khaos King, aka Kev Williams, which is the old name, but the names he uses currently is Jake Dale or Dale Jacob, and mainly he'll go by Dale. But that's kind of the way he likes to go. And trying to see if anyone from the other room is in there. So I'm going to scroll back over there, and I'll just end this. We'll just go straight into Vegas, because if no one else is in here from that, we will shoot over to the other. But anyway, so Shannon Dale Chamlies is in the Vegas. Shannon Dale Chamlies is in the Chicago area. If he tries to leave the area by means of airplane or bus or any type of transit in which they have his name, he's probably going to have a little bit of a problem. There's warrants for his arrest. He is wanted in Arkansas, and he is absconding at this moment. So he is a wanted person, and that is that's something that we're trying to work on right now. The problem is that his crimes are so low per person that you actually have to shoot a bunch of numbers up there to get it to where he becomes someone or a person of interest in the eyes of the law, whereas he currently, or actually previously to the last few days, was not. Now he's a little bit more attractive. So and that's thanks to the help of several people over the last few days that have filed reports and everything against him. He's probably, and this isn't, just so everybody knows, this isn't me tipping the hat so he can run out of town and leave and stuff like this. This is basically a new way of doing this, because it's kind of the same way that America's Most Wanted does and various other shows that have been doing this for years. And those shows basically go with the premise that if you that's getting people a little dizzy probably. If you get the information to the people that warn them that he's in their community and what have you, then what you'll see is the person will make a mistake. And that's essentially what he'll do. And I don't care if he's probably watching this, but I'm not even really worried if he is watching this. But Shannon Dale Chamlies, Kev Williams, Jakob Dale, Dale Jacob, whatever name you're going by today, Khaos King or what have you, your days are numbered again. I caught you before. I'll catch you again, one way or another, if not through my own hands, maybe through the hands of another person or what have you, but you are basically screwed. The net's a little bit wider now, and there's quite a few more problems that we're going to present for you. This is not bullying or harassment. This is a public service announcement. So if anyone tries to report this, I want to make certain that you understand that this person is a wanted criminal in Arkansas, and I do have the information for his PO officer if you need that. If you have been a victim of Shannon Dale Chamlies, you can simply contact myself, or you can contact your local police department first, which is the proper step to do. Contact your local police, fill out the report. Once you do that, then the other steps can be taken, which basically is to get that information over to the parole officer in Arkansas and the parole department, so that they know that this person is definitely becoming more and more wanted every day. The rules of extradition and getting people brought back to a state for prosecution vary from state to state, and they also vary as far as the value of the criminal. Plus, we're dealing with COVID-19 and various other things going on around the country, to where resources are stretched extremely thin. So people like Chamlies have a tendency of slipping through the cracks, but we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to enjoy a little bit of justice. and try to get this for these 300 to 500 women that this guy has probably screwed over. So you're looking at all the amount of deposits that he's done and the various other crimes that he's done and what have you. So those are all alleged until we actually get them prosecuted. But what's not alleged is what's actually on his rap sheet. So with that being said, I'm going to move over to Las Vegas. So let me stop the screen share here. I see we got Robomax in the crowd. Let's stop that particular one. Hit this button over here. Hit this button right here. Now, hey, look, it's got that right there. Okay, if anyone wants to come in and talk about this, if you have questions, and serve, how you doing, buddy? If you want to come on here, I am going to post the link right here and now, and you guys can come in and ask me questions about what just happened, because it's pretty big news. There you go. If anyone wants to come in here and talk to me, please do so. And we will go on from there. I want to make double sure everybody can still hear me 5x5, because it did move my mic around, so it wasn't sticking up my nose. Hey, Inserve, Edward, Scott, and Robomax. Hey, Robomax. Welcome back, Robomax. It's always great to see you. Same thing with Thumper. Thumper, we just love you to death around here. Gonna have me some Hassenpfeffer. If anyone has any questions about this, Mama Don, welcome back. Debbie, CL, everybody, I appreciate you guys dropping by. Jeff Scott, as always, if anyone wants to come on and talk about what just happened last night, and I will go over that here just shortly. If you haven't seen my post over on Facebook that actually shows the lawsuit that was filed against the estate of Stephen Paddock. Now, there's a big problem with that. And the issue is this. It's very similar to what happened with MGM when MGM sued the victims. Here's why. Now, people are going to disagree with this, but you don't have the information I have. So bear with me, and please trust me just for a moment that what I'm about to tell you will make sense in the end. Here's the situation. And I'm going to try to read that from the actual lawsuit. I'll read the lawsuit to you while I'm doing this. And we're going to try to get this. There's a couple of news organizations that are looking at this rather closely. I won't name who they are, but they are some big name newspapers. And, we'll just leave that at that for this moment. I'm going to open up my text messages from Eric, and I will tell you how this came about. Yesterday at 6:43 p.m., I received a message from Eric that basically said, well, I can actually tell you what it said. You can't make this shit up. Looks like SlideFire is suing the estate now. Those were Eric's words. And so I looked at I was like, wait a second. Are you serious? And of course, we get past the niceties that Eric and I always do. And I see the claim here. I'm going to try to get it on the screen because I do have it on my Facebook page. So let me open up Facebook and we'll get it on the screen so I can read it off the screen and not my phone. So bear with me just a second. I did go ahead and release this info, and we will see if I can get this screen open. And I'm sorry I keep winging these shows here recently. It's because I am doing a ton of stuff in the background here, and every time I get back here, it seems to be like last minute. So that's the story of my life. Most of you are pretty much used to that anyway. And why is this screen so small? Naturally, it's going to be small. So we will change that. No funny jokes in the background there. I'm sure somebody's already thinking of one. And let's go to here. And boom. Give me just a moment. And SlideFire. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's do this. Open. There we go. All right. So I got the SlideFire lawsuit in front of me here, and I will bring this screen up in just a second. And we'll share that. So I'm sure some of you have already seen the that, and again, if anyone wants to come in here, you're more than welcome to. Let me share this screen. I'm going to go to the application window. We'll share that one. Share. That should go to full screen on your screen. Let's make double sure of that before I start reading something that I can't see. Well, I don't need to see that. 11. Okay. I hope that's working. All right. I think I heard somebody just pop in here. There's Edward. I can't let you in here, buddy. Let me get this other screen here. And give me just a second. Let me pop this other file. Okay, so it should show there. So you guys can see that. Okay, so here's what's going on. As you can see there, the undersigned through counsel, blah, 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 you can see that back on October 6th of 2017, what happened was that Devin Prescott, Brooke Freeman, and whatever the hell that next word is, I'm not even going to say it because then I'll think of something else, individually and on behalf of all those similarly situated, collectively called the plaintiffs, filed a class action complaint. The complaint against SlideFire Solutions, LP, or SlideFire from this point forward. A true and accurate copy of the complaint is attached here to Exhibit A. The action was subsequently removed to federal court by SlideFire. After a decision was issued by the federal court in response to SlideFire's motion to dismiss, Devin Prescott and Brooke Freeman filed a First Amendment amended complaint attached here to as, let me get to that other screen and switch screens. I guess I have to zoom back out because that's just the way this does. And that's page 2. We'll zoom back in. And there we go. Sorry for it's fuzzy a little bit, but this is actually from Eric's phone, but I'm going to read this part right here. Let me get to the next section here. Okay, so as you look at this, I'm sure you guys are reading ahead of me here, but the after a decision was issued by the federal court in response to SlideFire's motion to dismiss the amended pleading, SlideFire filed its answer attached here to Exhibit C. So Exhibit B refers to C. The purported class action lawsuit arises out of the intentional criminal actions of Stephen Paddock, who, from the 32nd floor hotel room of Mandalay Bay, opened fire on the attendees of the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada. In the complaint, it is expressly acknowledged that the damage suffered by the plaintiff was wrought by a civilian who managed in a military-style assault from long range. Despite admitting that the cause of the horrible or horrific incident in question was Paddock's intentional and criminal acts, plaintiffs in this class action lawsuit, concert goers who witnessed the shooting and allegedly suffered emotional distress, are not suing the estate of the man who planned, plotted, and carried out this heinous act. Instead, they have commenced a lawsuit against various manufacturers and retailers of bump stocks, including SlideFire. To this end, plaintiffs allege that at least one, well, I figured I dropped the phone. Plaintiffs allege that at least one of the rifles recovered from Paddock's room was equipped with an aftermarket bump stock manufactured by SlideFire. Okay, so let's back this up just slightly before I read the rest of it. If you can read between the lines, and I have attorneys looking at this, and we're gonna try to strip this apart over the next couple of days. But a bump stock, and in this particular case, the SlideFire bump stock was invented by a man by the name of Jeremiah Cottle. Jeremiah Cottle is the CEO of SlideFire, and he is apparently assumed behind this suit, although it's not his name is not listed per se. The company's name is listed as SlideFire, as you guys can see on the previous page. And I don't know why the screen sharing just stopped. I'm going to reshare it here. Give me just a second so you guys can see this. Sorry about that. I did not see it. Phone was full, and let's hit the screen share, application window, and of course it doesn't show the application is supposed to be open, which I can see the application open. Hold on. There we go. I just saw it. And page 2. Don't need it that big. Go here, and it goes away again. Let's try this one more time. I'll shrink it, and now we've got it. Okay. So we share this screen again, and we will zoom in on this so you guys can see it, and I'll have both screens open together here. Okay, so the part that we're talking about is right down in the center, and I'm going to put that up here and come back over here so we can see it. It's supposed to be full size, but it went back down. Typical going live. There we go. So this page is a little bit fuzzier, so I apologize, but I'll read it off of the other screen here, and because it's a little bit clearer on mine. But one of the things that it says here is it basically says, first off, Paddock was doing this military style, which I guess you could argue that, despite admitting that the cause of the horrific incident in question was Paddock's intentional and criminal acts. Yeah, we won't get into that. Plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit, concertgoers who witnessed the shooting allegedly suffered emotional distress, are not suing the estate of the man who planned, plotted. And here's the funny part about that. The reason why they're not suing the estate is because the estate was given to the victims. So in effect, what would you be suing? So this attorney, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. This attorney is suing the estate of Stephen Paddock, which was already given to the victims of this crime. The problem with that is multiple, but one of them that you can see by reading this one sentence here, and I'm helping the other. I'm sure he's going to watch this tomorrow. Tom Edwards is the guy's name. I've called him 3 times today. Concert goers who witnessed the shooting and allegedly suffered emotional distress, I hate that word, are not suing the estate of the man who planned, plotted, and carried out this heinous act. Instead, they have commenced a lawsuit against various manufacturers and retailers of bump stocks, including SlideFire. And probably, maybe they weren't watching the news, or maybe they weren't paying attention, or maybe the attorney is broke, like Scott says here. There could be a number of reasons, but this is the most asinine, stupid, crazy-ass bullshit I think I've seen, not since the beginning of this case, but since the last crazy-ass bullshit that I've seen in this case. This case has had the most incredible, insane things happen, where MGM sued the victims. I guess these guys took a lesson from that, and effectively, they are also suing the victims. Here's why. If you break this down, if the estate has already been, it's in probate, it's still processing and stuff like this, but the estate effectively has been given to the victims. And as such, since the estate belongs to the victims, or is in the victims fund, or will be in the victims fund, those dollar amounts should be fixed at a certain amount. And hopefully, if Eric's told me that this process of them going through the final probate is obviously a nightmare, considering all the things that are going on. But this process, when finalized, would be not a super substantial amount like the $800 million, but it'd be a relatively substantial amount, more than probably any of us have. So the situation is this: that money is to be divided amongst the victims, the real victims here. And here's the funny part, not even funny. Here's the seriously sad part of this whole thing. Here is the seriously sad part. The seriously sad part is that this manufacturer, who manufactured the very device that allowed these weapons to become basically automatic, and kill more people, is suing because he lost business. He is suing because he lost his business. The manufacturer of the bump stocks that were used to kill people at the Las Vegas venue during the Route 91 concert on October 1st of 2017. That very company that manufactured the bump stock. I'm not saying it was all the bump stocks because I don't know which ones were SlideFire, which ones weren't, but they already admitted that at least one of them was. And I guarantee you that probably the one that was used or the multitude of them probably killed people. So this manufacturer who made the device that allowed these weapons to shoot at a nearly fully automatic rate is suing the estate of Stephen Paddock, which has already been given to the Victims Fund. Effectively, it belongs to the victims. It belongs to Jeff. It belongs to CL, who are in this room right now. That's their money. So it belongs to them. And this guy has hired this attorney to come sue CL and Jeff. Well, actually, Jeff didn't join, but we'll just... Jeff, we're going to pretend that you're in. But so I after a while, you start to wonder exactly what goes through people's minds. Did these attorneys do their homework? Did they know this? And if they didn't know this, how good of an attorney can you possibly be to not know this? This is part of your due diligence. This is part of your job. This is what you do. You go out and you find out all the information necessary to allow you to go into court and represent your client in a manner that is conducive to your profession, to make you look like a person who knows what they're doing and is going to make a decision that's going to affect your client in a positive way. That's what you're paid to do. This attorney, in my opinion, there's three of them, but we'll talk about all three of them. These attorneys appear to be looking for pockets for some reason. I don't know what the reason is yet, but just like many attorneys, they tend to look for the deeper pockets, and that's in our favor too. Like if you're going to sue somebody, you don't want to sue, the guy that spilled the water on the floor in Walmart, right? You're going to sue the guy that accidentally dumped over the bucket of water that made you slip and fall. No, the lawyer is going to not sue that guy. They're going to sue the employer and the employer's insurance company. That's how it works. So I get that part. But these guys didn't do their homework. This is unbelievable. They didn't do their homework because if they would have done their homework, they would have found out that the properties that as soon as Eric Paddock found out all that was going on, he immediately offered up all of the assets of Stephen Paddock to the Victims Fund. That's what he did. So, hey, Rock Girl, I'll catch you back up here in a minute. So that's effectively what was done. So we're looking at this lawsuit now, and we're trying to go through it line by line. But that there just pretty much stops me and tells me that either these attorneys don't know that the actual assets of Stephen Paddock have already been given over to the Victims Fund. They may not already be in there yet, but that is in the works or what have you, depending on whatever information they have to finish it up with. So there you have it. Now let's go down a little bit. SlideFire contends in its answer that but for the acts of Stephen Paddock, the class action plaintiffs could not have suffered the alleged damages for which they seek monetary compensation. Stephen Paddock's conduct amounts to superseding and intervening intentional, negligent, reckless, and or criminal acts that led to plaintiffs' purported damages, which may result in exposing SlideFire to liability to plaintiffs beyond its proportionate share. What the hell is your proportionate share? I mean, granted, you didn't make the AR-15s. You just made them shoot a lot faster so they could kill more people and they could hurt more people. That's what you made. Which are you trying to determine which one is worse? Is that it? Mr. Jeremiah Cottle or Tom Edwards or whichever the attorneys is eventually going to respond to this? Because you're going to have to respond. You're going to have to say something. I called you 3 times today. I gave you 3 chances. You're done. You're done. Now I'm just gonna go with the information that I have, and I'm going to interpret it the way I see fit. So at this point, it seems like SlideFire is trying to limit their liability and push it off to the plaintiffs, because they say right here, Stephen Paddock's conduct amounts to superseding and intervening intentional, negligent, reckless, and or criminal acts that led to plaintiff's purported damages. So, okay, it's Stephen Paddock's fault. Oh, okay, we get it now. We thought it was someone else's fault. No, we all know it's Stephen Paddock's fault. We all know this. But Stephen Paddock, if he would have just used an AR-15 without your product on it, less people would be dead. Less people would be injured. A lot less. A lot less. This is the dumbest freaking shit. And so when you think about it, consider this. He's trying to convince us that Stephen Paddock is the only enemy here. That if Stephen Paddock would have had the AR-15, basically what he's saying, Stephen Paddock probably would have still committed the crime. I can't argue that logic. But what I can argue is that if Stephen Paddock didn't have a bump stock on these weapons, no one would think they were automatics. We would know. A lot fewer people would have died. I don't think that's an opinion at this point. I don't think anyone in here disagrees with that statement. Does anyone disagree with that statement? That if there were no bump stocks on these weapons, less people would have been injured or died? I think that's pretty much, I think we can say that as fact. Or pretty damn close to it. This lawsuit is obviously, it's ridiculous. So there's a couple other things I wanted to say right then, but I'm not. I'm going to hold back on that part. Hold back on that. I got to keep this within the realm of reason. So thus SlideFire would be entitled to contribution or indemnity from the estate of Stephen Paddock and seeks the ability to have the jury allocate the proportionate share of the responsibility between the potential joint tortfeasors. And for that reason, SlideFire may have an action for contribution against the estate of Stephen Paddock after the class action plaintiff's claims are fully adjudicated. Okay, so let's hope that what that means is that the jury that they're almost suggesting would wait until all the monies from this would be paid out. If there's anything left over, that it would go to SlideFire. I mean, you could interpret it that way, but I don't really interpret it that way. The way I see it is that this is one of the lowest scumbaggy, typical attorney situations I think I have ever seen. I think it's ridiculous. And Mike, what do you think of my combat veteran friend that thinks that a properly trained commando with a semi-automatic and proper scope could have killed more people than a full auto? I agree. 100% I agree. My training tells me this exact same thing. Now, as far as injuries, I think shooting and spraying probably caused if you look at it, there's a very disproportionate number of injuries to death if you compare it to other mass shootings. But in this particular instance, I think a properly trained combat veteran with a semi-automatic rifle with a scope, would definitely have caused more problems. Anyway, so that's number 3. Number 4 here. I don't know if it's on that screen. I have to take this off. Sorry. Take this down. I'm just going to read it to you. SlideFire demands payment from the estate of Stephen Paddock in excess of $250. I guess $250 is the threshold that they have to even file this type of a case in the 8th District Court of Nevada. This case is in probate. So this is in the probate court. I will give you the case number. The problem is because it was just served, it may not show up in the system yet. If anyone has Pacer, just contact me separately and I'll give you that. But that's basically it in a nutshell, guys. It's a very short, fairly poorly written response to what would, I don't know about you guys, but I would think that this would have been a lot of pages, a lot more than 3 pages. This reminds me of the BAU report for the entire situation here. I'm going to try to go up and read some of these questions here. Actually, if some of you have questions that I didn't answer earlier, if you can copy and paste them and redo it again, that'd be great, because I'm dealing with multiple screens here and trying to work something else out. And I'm getting messages from the people looking for the Shannon Dale Chamlies show, but since you guys didn't show up on time, I had to switch to another situation here. So, what about the damage to Jason's Barstool song? He will sue next. I don't know about that one. It's the only way lawyers going to get paid for defending stuff. You know what, FonSpy? That is exactly what I thought, because I don't think SlideFire was able to probably come through with whatever funding that they needed to pay the attorneys, and this may be a last-ditch effort just on the case of the attorney. And here's the reason why I think that. Let's go back to page number 1, and here's the reason why I think this. I got to zoom this out, zoop, and then click this, click that, and then zoom back in. Okay. So normally in these types of suits, this is fairly typical in how it's written. You'll see on there where it says, in the matter of the estate of Stephen Paddock, deceased, blah, 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 attorneys for SlideFire Solutions. Do you guys see anything else on there? What's missing here? The people that are suing the estate of Stephen Paddock are the attorneys for SlideFire Solutions, not necessarily SlideFire Solutions. So if someone else is interpreting this any different, you don't see where blah, blah, blah versus blah, 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 or what have you. I could be reading this wrong because I've been dealing with a bunch of stuff the last couple of days, and I'm not very clear on this particular one because probate is a little bit different than the cases I'm used to seeing. So if that is the case, it appears to me that FonSpy, you're exactly correct, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Because if you look right there, just below their names, it just says attorneys for Fireside or SlideFire Solutions. It doesn't say who's basically going after who here. It appears as though it's the attorneys suing to get their funds back, and that's what it may be. But if any of those attorneys are listening to me right now, I'm going to make it a very, very big point. I'm gonna contact you one more time tomorrow, and this goes out to Tom Edwards. You were the specific person that I tried to reach today. He is the second one down. I was told he's the lead. So we're looking at James D. Boyle, Tom Edwards, he goes by Tom, and Holly Drugs. So these are the people who are behind this particular filing. And we'll see. It's a creditor's claim. If you look over on the right-hand side, you'll see it's a creditor's claim. So this is essentially these lawyers trying to get their money back. So this isn't exactly Jeremiah Cottle trying to do this, but in effect it is. So let me be perfectly clear before someone comes and tries to rip me apart. I'm surprised RoboMax hasn't really done that yet, or maybe he has. I'm just not paying attention to him. But pay close attention to the left side. You have 3 attorneys listed, and right below it, it says attorneys for SlideFire Solutions. On the right-hand side, you see where it says creditors claim. So this is effectively creditors, much like if you had passed away and you owed a bunch of money on your credit cards, the creditors would file a motion or a claim against your estate. And as such, whatever monies are left over of your estate after other things are paid, which is actually what they wrote on the end of this, which is what makes me really believe that that's the case here. With my limited knowledge of law, that this is actually what it says it is. It's a creditor's claim against the estate of Stephen Paddock because the bill for the attorneys was not paid. So my assumption is this: I will contact the attorney again tomorrow, and if he doesn't return my call, then we'll see how that goes. But I'm kind of Eric said go for it. Eric said do whatever you want. Which in this particular instance is I'm going to give them the knowledge, which I did tonight. I actually, before I came back up the hill here, I went ahead and called the attorney one last time at 5:30 something. So I knew it was after hours. And I put in his voicemail, and I think for the people in my private group, you guys already heard pretty much what I said to the guy. But essentially what I told him was, I said, hi, I'm Mike Turber with 5x5 News. I'm just calling to inform you that the lawsuit that you filed against the estate of Stephen Paddock actually is in fact, or effectively, is the money that belongs to the victims of the Las Vegas shooting. So in effect, you are suing the victims, much like MGM did last year. So essentially, by doing that, you are creating a problem for yourself from a PR standpoint. And I didn't say that part to him, but I'll say that tomorrow. That from a PR standpoint, if you're going to sue the estate of Stephen Paddock, and it's just a procedural thing. I mean, granted, we're making, people say, well, you're making such a big deal out of it. It's really them just trying to recover their funds. Yeah, I get that part. But you really, in the cases like this, with the number of the number of victims in this case, you really should have paid attention to when MGM tried the same shit, when they tried to do the Safety Act and tried to sue the victims back then. You probably should have thought, you know what, on second thought, I probably shouldn't sue the victims, because effectively, if they gave this into the victims fund, then the money belongs to the victims. And for you guys to come in here as former representatives of the company that created the bump stock, you were the former attorneys that tried to defend the companies that made the company that made the bump stock, and and you thought that you come in here and that we wouldn't see this. You thought you're going to slip one through the cracks. You waited this long, and you're like, okay, well, let's try to recover our funds. I don't know if you guys are broke or something. Maybe you can start a GoFundMe. Start a GoFundMe account for the former attorneys to the bump stock situation. Can you guys play and see how far that takes you? Maybe someone will feel sorry for you. Maybe not. I know I'm not. Maybe that Tasmanian porn devil or whatever that is, whoever the third one is it Tasmanian porn? What's that say? Upright porn, Taz and porn, whoever that is. Sorry. But maybe they have some money. But this lawsuit has to go away. This is just absolutely ridiculous. It's dumb. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to go back over here and see here. Was SlideFire Solutions a party on the original lawsuit on Stephen Paddock's estate? I don't recall if they were, actually. I can probably pull up Pacer and do that and find out. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that. Let me pull up Pacer real quick. Log in. That actually takes too much time away. Log in, boom, boom, boom. Where would you like to go? I would like to go to Pacer Case Locator. Log in. There we go. And Pacer Locator, find parties. Party, Paddock, P-A-D-D-O-C-K. First name, Stephen. H-E-N. And exact matches, who cares? Here we go. Michelle Spencer et al. Hey, there's the first lawsuit that was filed. That was by Catherine Lombardo. If you guys want to see that, I'll share that screen. This is kind of a little interesting for you. So let's do that. Let's share a screen, stop that screen, share this screen, Chrome tab. Where's my Pacer account? Pacer locator results. Share. Okay, so here's my Pacer locator results. And let's do this here. And we'll go to, I can see I've been in here before. Run query, auto state first. This is the first complaint filed. Oh, that's a notice of removal. That's the other one. Figures I go the wrong direction. There we go. Boom. History documents. Run query. And so there's a removal, attorney case opening. Okay, the complaint I already have. So that's it there. So basically, this is the original complaint that was filed by Catherine Lombardo back in the day. So let's go back here. And the other file is not in there. I don't see it. If you guys can, Paddock versus Nash, Paddock, Robin Paddock. I don't see it. So it's not in there. So the estate, I'd have to go into a different file system to get that. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? From a PR standpoint, that are getting free advertising from getting media coverage. I'm not sure if I 100% agree with that, but yeah, no, there's no such thing as bad publicity, is basically what Robomax is saying there. And I kind of agree with that to a degree, but not really. Because if the publicity is really bad, it's really bad. And let's see here. And Inserv says company went broke because of the shooting. They are a victim. And that's a good question, Inserv. And I'll tell you why I think a little bit differently than most. I was a federally licensed firearms dealer. I owned a business called World of Weapons. A lot of you know that. Some of you might not. So I sold weapons, and I sold various items that you would add to the weapon to make it do other things. Okay. Case in point, the Hellfire triggers. I had those for about 3 months and decided that I didn't want to carry them anymore. I looked at some other devices like Dragon's Breath, various other type of tracer rounds, all kinds of different things. And I started realizing that I'm getting into a gray area. Let's fast forward a little bit. Let's get back to this case right here. The person who invented the bump stock. Now, if you read the patents, and maybe I should pull up those. Let's pull up Jeremiah Cottle. Let's see here. And let's do bump stock. Patents. Same screen. There we go. All right, so let me share this screen. Give me just a minute. I'm going to stop that one. Share screen. Chrome tab. And we're going to look at these patents. Where are they at? I'm probably looking right at them. There we go. Share right here. Okay, so here are the patents that are from Jeremiah. Adjustable length slide action rifle stock. This is essentially your bump stock. It was filed on December 31st of 2015. The patent was approved on April 4th of 2017. So folks, we're talking just 6 months before the shooting, the patent for the bump stock was approved. Just 6 months before the shooting, the patent for the bump stock was approved. Let that sink in for just a minute. I don't know about you guys, but that kind of brings a little different light to this. A manually actuated slide action handle for a semi-automatic firearm. The handle has a chassis portion and a length adjustable shoulder stock portion to enable a user to alter the trigger pull length of the firearm. A finger rest stabilizes the end of a user's trigger finger stretched in front of the firearm trigger. The finger rest is detachable from the chassis and has a generally U-shaped configuration that is adapted to connect to the handle in either a right-handed position or whatever. It's just basically if you hold the weapon just right, and it does take a little bit of getting used to. If anyone's fired it, you know what I'm talking about. If you hadn't fired it, what you have to do is you have to kind of hold the weapon with both hands at a kind of an awkward feel. But once you fire the weapon and you feel the recoil of the weapon go back, within just a few rounds going through, you get it pretty quickly as to how to hold it to keep it going that way. And so it's not an automatic firearm. An automatic would be like an M240 or something like that, or a saw, those type of things. So this is not an automatic firearm, but it's as close as you're probably going to get to shooting one, unless you have a Class 3 firearms license and what have you. I miss my MP5, if that helps. But when you fire a fully automatic weapon, there are reasons to have those. A lot of people say, well, there's no reason. Guy, what do you got to do? You're going to go out and kill 30 Bambis in 20 seconds? No, that's not the reason for it. And I'm not going to get into that debate because that's a whole nother round of things. But the bump stock is a device that was creatively designed. And I will argue with Jeremiah Cottle till the end of time that his motivation for making this device was probably and most likely so that he could get around the Class 3 or the stamp, what they call it, the doc stamp or whatever, or the getting around the necessary paperwork and what have you to be able to sell fully automatic weapons. That's my opinion at the moment. I don't know Jeremiah personally. Maybe he remembers my business if he was around at the time I was selling with World of Weapons, but I don't know the guy. But I can say this, based on the little bit that I've seen of him over the last day and a half, was done so in such a way that they could circumvent the Class 3 firearms license that's necessary for someone to purchase a fully automatic weapon. That's my opinion. So I could be wrong, but I don't think so. All right, let's see here. SlideFire is a LLC. No, it's a LP. An LLC is a limited liability corporation. SlideFire is a LP. That's limited partnership. Robomax says lawyers benefit from a reputation of being ruthless, not from being nice guys. I mean, that's kind of true. Actually, it's not kind of true. It is true. 8th District website answered my question. Thanks, though, Mike. Okay, I don't know what your question was. I apologize. George, go to live chat. Binary triggers. No, well, then it's not necessarily binary triggers. The bump stock doesn't work on that principle necessarily. Loose running piece of back on. SlideFire was a limited partnership, correct? A limited partnership is not a limited liability company. A limited liability company is quite a bit different, which has probably left themselves open to more pricey litigation. If they would have been an LLC, they might have had a little bit different situation. But here's the kicker, guys. The bump stock, when attached to an AR-15, essentially becomes a part of the AR-15. Therefore, what the recent ruling has been is that you can't sue the people that make the bump stock because it's essentially not an accessory item that you add to it. It's effectively a part. It becomes a part of the weapon. I got a problem with that. I don't, and I'm a gun guy. I am a gun guy, but there's some things I just look at and go, Okay, so there's some really crafty wording that goes on behind the scenes. Whenever you're trying to get a patent, here's how the patents work. Whenever you're trying to get a patent and you want to slip it through the cracks somewhere, it's some crafty wording that these attorneys use to get it to go. And that's essentially what this is. Is somebody got to come in here with me? I'll even take Robomax at this point. Oh, God. Somebody come in here. I'll post a link again. Let's see here. Copy the clipboard. Get some other opinions besides my own, or else it'll be the Welcome to the Mike Turber Show. All right, there you go. Somebody wants to come in here. Anybody but Edward. Edward, I can't let you in right now. I'll tell you why next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Actually, it's because of extenuating circumstances. I'm not going to mention it during the show here. Bump stock was a silly parlor trick until it wasn't. Yeah. The situation with all of these accessories or extra parts or whatever, anything that you add to a firearm that causes it to do something that otherwise would be illegal is a problem, Jeremiah Cottle. And because of that, you had to get attorneys to protect you from a lawsuit because your invention, your patent, caused the deaths of a whole bunch of people. How does that make you feel, sir? I manufactured weapons. I have designed weapons. I designed the Microtech Tachyon butterfly knife. I have designed other knives. I designed the Smith & Wesson knife that has the seatbelt cutter on it that you all have probably seen. I don't make a dime on it, but I designed that. I've designed other things that are considered weapons. I've designed pepper spray units that are used for carjacking, stuff like that. And I've been sued. I have been sued by people who have used my product and have caused damage. I've had one of the weapons that I sold used in a crime that someone used a weapon that was purchased from me, and ATF called me up and let me know that one of the weapons that I sold was used in a crime that was committed where the person committed murder. But not once have I ever taken a product and specifically manipulated it in such a way to make it illegal and then sell it. I absolutely 100% will tell everyone within my voice range that I have manipulated a bunch of weapons and made them do crazy things for my own personal use. No problem, Jeff. So as you go through this process of trying to think some of these things out, you have to try to get into the mind of the person who produced this product. Does anyone actually believe that he produced this product because it was going to be for, I don't know, like switchblades? Because I stood up in front of Congress in the state of Florida, Florida Senate, and actually had a table full of knives. You can actually see this. If you look up AKTI, which is American Knife and Tool Institute, you can see where I was arguing about the KGB ballistic knife and various stuff. So just do Mike Turber, AKTI, and you'll see the case. But I actually was in front of the Senate with a table full of knives and had to show how fast each knife could be opened. One, you had butterfly knives, the one I designed, the Microtech Tachyon. I had one of Benchmade's butterfly knives. I had switchblades. I had the KGB ballistic knife there, but I didn't put the spring in it because it's the most illegal knife in the world, and various other knives. And the fastest knife I was able to open was the #1 selling knife of all time, the Buck 110. And so, yes, I get it. Modifying a weapon to make it faster or to make it do whatever makes sense. Center of gravity, are you going to come in here? Otherwise, this is going to be the Mike Turber Show. I can't get Robomax to come in here because he's scared I'll whoop his butt. But anyway, so you have these weapons that people have modified. Now, for anyone to actually believe that Jeremiah Cottle, and I may be 100% wrong, but I'm going to run with this one. My personal belief is that this device was made solely for the purpose of bypassing the legal system of weapons that are classified as fully automatic. Let me see here. Center of gravity says, and I'll put it on the screen. Boom. The National Rifle Association stated on October 5th, 2017, that devices designed to allow semi-automatic rifles to function like fully automatic rifles should be subject to additional regulations. Yes, they did. The NRA made SlideFire unable to pay creditors. They had insurance to cover death associated with product usage. May not be enough. I had mine was 2 million, 5 million, and 10 million. When I was selling to Walmart, I had to increase it to $10 million. My insurance was $18,000 a month just for insurance. So let me put this up there as well. How about that little crank trigger thing? Okay, the little crank trigger thing. You're talking about a Gatling gun? Or you're talking about the actual cranking trigger where you actually crank it and the trigger acts like a little Mexican jumping beam where it just starts, or one of those little. Has anyone ever seen that trigger? It's actually a guy took one of those little bouncing ducks. You little wind up the little duck and you put him down and it just starts bouncing around. They actually made a trigger out of that. For some reason, my phone just did a complete hard reset. I guess I got hacked because I commented on your chat. Okay, love you anyway. Yep, that's how that works. Wait, is it because you commented on my chat that I hacked you? Yeah, that's how that works. I think it's Robomax. Robomax has secretly learned how to hack, and he follows me around and waits for that prime opportunity so it looks like I did it, which actually kind of happened a while back when a certain individual actually doxed somebody, and I was being blamed for it. And Edward, if you kind of want to know, you got to think out all of the other people that you affected back when you did what you did. So, I'm kind of off on the side, and I'm still kind of like, I'm not too happy with the situation that you created for CL and for Center of Gravity, and including myself, but those two primarily. So yeah, I've got an issue with it. So here we go. Yeah, he does follow me. There's no doubt Robomax follows. I think Robomax is secretly in love with me because I saw Robomax. He has long hair. And he reminds me a little bit of Inserve, which I also have the hots for. But Robomax, with that sexy voice he's got, I don't know. Just kind of does something for me. Oh, that got somebody to come in here. There he is. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you this evening?
I'm doing all right. Wow, let me turn my volume down. It just blasted up my eardrums here. Okay. Can you believe this crap? I mean, just when we thought it was safe to get back in the settlement, boom, some other crazy crap happens. Here we go. All right.
Looks like a Hail Mary. Like a Hail Mary of all Hail Marys that these attorneys have put together here.
Yeah, I think they're looking at the statute of limitations ends. Just so everybody knows, the statute of limitations on this case ends on August 14th. That'll be the statute as it relates to anyone that can produce a lawsuit against MGM. That ends August 14th. Maybe these attorneys think the same thing applies to the estate, but who knows? And just so you know, too, the estate's kind of hanging on because they have to get past the statute of limitations. That way they have a final amount, because if they would have put it in and gave the money to the victims fund and said, okay, this is the final amount, and then someone came up and was able to do this between now and August 14th. So I think the actual date will be around August 14th, that all of the funds from the estate are actually put into some final count. And Eric, if you're listening to this, that's also what I came up with today. So Eric listened last night, so I'm sure he's listening tonight. But anyway, welcome to the show there, Mr. Center of Gravity.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, thank you. Yeah, I've just been listening, trying to keep up with this. A few things going on I've been distracted with, but I think I'm caught up a little bit now in terms of due to your excellent recap of how this has all unfolded. And the more I look at it, I would think, especially when you get into the fine details of the legalities there in terms of, where the responsibility lies. They're suggesting that it was the actions of Stephen Paddock that resulted in their client's inability to pay. And
Exactly.
It looks like there's a few different barriers between when that happened and when Stephen Paddock had, took his actions. So
yeah,
I don't know how they're going to get
there was
there.
a couple of missteps there where the attorneys didn't take into account some of the other actions by the other players in this whole thing. And so when you start piecing this all together, you wonder, here we are, none of us are law enforcement. We're all just internet researchers, and some of us with more skills than others, and some of us can do videos, and some of us, are followers, and then there's some that do this, and some that are victims, and we have survivors in here. All of these people, all of us are all together. Even Robomax, I always have to pull him in. Even Thumper, even Edward. All of these people were all in this kind of in a weird, convoluted way together to try to get to the truth. Unfortunately, some of us couldn't recognize the truth if it slapped us in the face, and that they deal with their own issues. But for the rest of us sane people that are not wackadoodles, what we have to do is weed through all this stuff ourselves and actually come up with actionable things to determine what's going on. This is why you never see on the other side of the fence, you don't ever see them come up with this type of information, like the actual real stuff. And so when you sit down and you read this shit, you go, wow, these attorneys could not actually do the research that you do, meaning you, center of gravity, or anyone else for that matter, and go online on the internet, which is where a lot of our research is done, myself included. I'll admit, hey, I go in there, but we can tell the difference between reality and fiction. Some other people can't. Some people just sit in their garage and make weird noises. They do that. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but hey, that was a great show. But in the end, we have to sit here and determine that these attorneys did not do their due diligence. They did not figure things out. And here they are suing the estate of Stephen Paddock as a last-ditch effort because they need money. They need money more than the victims need money? Did they not think this out?
Surely they understand. Sure, I hate to call you Shirley, but
he knew right where I was going. He knew damn well I was going to get you on that one. You got my number now, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Right when you said Shirley, you went, "Oh shit! I can't say that. He's going to get me on that one."
Oh shit! They have to understand that. I mean, it only makes sense that they're going to make this move in an effort to just get in line, essentially, with if there's any money left in the trust, if there's or in the estate, and if the estate ever comes into any more money through royalties or dividends that yields from other investments, if they strike oil somewhere that right now it pays a penny a year and it suddenly starts paying $1 million a year, they're in line for something. It seems like that would be their approach this late in the game. I mean, they're just doing a Hail Mary to get in line for chicken scraps if they can. Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the way I see it. MGM made a classic mistake that we capitalized in the documentary. You're gonna see the mistake they made when they went to sue the victims, and even Craig Island came out and said the victims are being sued for being shot. I mean, that was one of his statements. And so when you look at this, you're like, what thought process did these attorneys go through to say, you know what, it might be a good idea for us to sue the estate of Stephen Paddock? They probably thought it was late enough in the game that no one would pay attention or see it. They would just slip it in there, because if you go over to the 8th District Court, you can't find this case yet. Primarily because I don't think they file anything until they get the paperwork back where it shows that it was served. So Eric got it yesterday. He gave it to me last night at 6:53 or whatever, and immediately said, "Do whatever you want." So I'm doing whatever I want. What's the proper terminology for the manner in which the estate is gifted, donated, or given to the victims? And along that process, as it's carried out, is it? I mean, surely it's. Here we go again with Shirley. I mean, it had to have been documented into stone by now. That agreement, that transfer. At least it's been documented. Actually, I don't think it may not be somewhere where an attorney could actually see it. And the reason why I say that is this. A lot of people know that the houses are sold and various other things are done.
But there's still property that's kind of in this limbo area. The guns are still there. Okay, the guns are still there. The guy that paid for the guns, that money, the 64, 62, whatever $1,000 it was, that went into the victim's fund with the stipulation that Eric agreed to. I agreed to as well, that the weapons are destroyed or basically put in some sort of manner where they can't ever be used or whatever. And I think that his actual request is so that the guns are destroyed so no one ever has to look at them or see them or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I agree with that, because I've held Jack Ruby's gun. Jack Ruby's gun was actually purchased by Bob Smith of Atlantic Coast Gun Shows. And I was able to hold that gun, and just being able to see it and hold it kind of makes history is history. And if you start removing things from history, and granted, these are firearms, and I do get all the stuff that goes, all the arguments that could argue against it and for it. I get it. But for me personally, I think it's important sometimes to see these things so people have a better understanding of what they are. Because some people's they've never held an AR-15, they've never seen one or whatever, and they may not know what it is. I mean, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Shirley?
Well, Shirley speaking here, I would say that melt them down, take the higher grade metals, separate them out, do whatever that process involves in terms of the metallurgy. Take what's valuable out of the metal, make something else out of it. I mean, they don't need to be the tool that they were designed to be, any longer. They were not used properly. They're used for evil, and they don't need to be around. Now, right. Can they be melted into nothing and then shoveled off into a ditch? Yeah, that's fine too. But if somebody wants to take the value out of them and make something else out of them, that's fine. I don't care. They're worthless to society, in my opinion. Right. I mean,
right. I think the reason why I would prefer that these are destroyed is because I wouldn't want some sicko going into a museum and see the Stephen Paddock story, and then see the weapons, and then somehow get a weird motivation to go do one better than Steve did. So I've got to have more weapons. What did he have? Oh, he had a Daniels. I'm going to get, a whatever. So that is what goes through my, what the hell was that? Something just fell. That is what goes through my mind when I think that way. The negative impact would be that some wackadoodle like a Paladin or a KL or a TB, not that those are real people, but someone would go out and somehow in their mind screw themselves into thinking that they would be able to go out and create more carnage and mass mayhem than Stephen Paddock did. And they would utilize the weapons or the tannerite or whatever they saw him do. He would be like an idol to them, and then they would try to do one better. That's my thoughts. That's why they shouldn't do it.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the TB within all that, because I believe he was just mentioning something to the effect of some sort of mass carnage idea that was bouncing around between his ears related to the social unrest that's been ongoing. And it seemed extreme when I heard the idea, because I don't think we're anywhere near that level yet. But no. I guess it was just show business as usual when he was talking about it, because it's exciting. It's exciting to talk about that kind of stuff.
Well, he has to deal with mass carnage every day. I mean, think of the size he is, and then when food, because he's a carnivore, I think he eats meat, and so when food has to be, they have to, I'm not going to say it in public, but what they have to do to animals to get them to the condition to where he can eat them. He eats his fair share of animals per year. Probably that would be a safe assessment. He ought to start eating rabbit. He needs to eat rabbit, because rabbit is a great food for someone that size to eat. Hassenpfeffer is a wonderful dish, and I think he would benefit from that.
Well, he used to keep rabbits around him real close, but the last one I knew that hung out over there ran off from him. So I don't know what he's related to.
That's true too.
Oh, we're getting side, but yeah, it's those brands should not stick around and be symbolic of anything significant whatsoever. Other than the tools that they're designed to be used for. And
right.
So I hear what your point is about, Daniel Defense or whichever other brand is in that inventory of weapons. If I was a manufacturer of those weapons, I wouldn't want them around either.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that in agreement. The museum thing is one thing, but only with the mindset that you would actually screen people before they came in. And the problem with screening people before they go into a museum is you would have to screen out people like Gale and TB and Paladin, Thumper, people like that. And so they wouldn't be able to see them and learn from it, but to each his own. But my personal opinion on weapons and firearms and things like that is that the American society is different than any other society on earth. Our country is, I think that weapons, especially when it comes to firearms of various types or whatever, are necessary at this time. I don't think you could just immediately get rid of them, because obviously if you make more laws that control weapons, the only people that are going to have the weapons are the people that don't abide by the law. And I'm a firm believer in that, because it's already happened. All you have to do is go look at Chicago. I mean, that's just a prime spot to go, hey, if you want to see if the Democratic side of the coin is going to flip the right angle, then go take a look at Chicago. But that's a blanket statement for that area. And I'm all for more controls over firearms, but not the ones that most people are thinking. I don't think that a weapon accessory like a bump stock should have ever really made it through the patent process. Like the person sitting there reading this thing going, a manually actuated slide action. You just say it turns the damn thing into a freaking fully automatic weapon. But no, they have to say a manually actuated side action handle for a semi-automatic firearm. What the hell is that? So you got some patent guy sitting there reading this shit, or whoever, and they're going to read that one page, and they're going to go, oh, it's just that thing, a manually actuated slide action handle. Oh, it's just a handle for a semi-automatic firearm. It's just a handle. It doesn't do anything. Where on here does it say it turns it into a fully automatic weapon? It doesn't. It alludes to, it says to selectively arrest relative sliding movement between the fire. It's like the fecal matter is about to impact upon the rotary oscillator. Just say the shit's going to hit the fan. I say the shit's going to hit the fan. You say the fecal matter will impact upon the rotary oscillator. Okay. Most people are going to go, what did you just say? The fecal matter will impact upon the rotary oscillator. And they're going to say, are you trying to say the shit's going to hit the fan? Yes. But they don't say that. They have to word this and such this and all this crap that no one reading this thing would probably go whatever. So you see the type of the patent is granted, and it was granted 6 months before the shooting. 6 months before the shooting.
Placing restrictions on firearms and firearm accessories is just a total waste of time for legislators that we pay, and they should definitely spend their time doing some other things that need some oversight, and putting in measures that will benefit the majority by putting their work in that direction. But banning weapons and putting more stringent regulations on weapons that the criminals with intent to kill are going to quite likely break and disobey anyway, total waste of time in terms of your what your reward on making that, what your benefit is on making that regulation. I mean, you're going to get no return on all that effort, because the criminal's going to go out and break the law anyway. So absolutely, these legislators have no business messing around with gun laws and stuff at this point. If they want to come up with some make sense measures that would quite likely cut down on criminal behavior associated with them, then let's hear it. But our political system doesn't work that way. It's our political system's just two mobs pissing on each other, and they're just a bunch of damn waste of time basically. But anyway, yeah, so that's my thought on the whole gun legislation thing. Is like, if somebody wants to, there needs to be a much broader conversation on that, and our politicians aren't really at that level. And
no, I agree. I think when you overregulate an industry, you create a sub industry. I mean, that I've lived through multiple times. When you overregulate something, like go back to prohibition. That is a classic example of how not to do that. That's going the extreme. Okay, alcohol is the problem. Alcohol is what caused my, in my case, it actually did cause my first wife to die. But was it the alcohol that caused my first wife to die? No, it was her drinking the alcohol that caused her to die. It wasn't the alcohol. The alcohol could sit on the shelf, and I drink alcohol. I drink it, whatever. But for her case, it is it triggered whatever in her body caused her to drink a lot more than she probably should have. And so you have people in society, they can't seem to control themselves for whatever reason when they get around firearms, or they get around alcohol, or they get around women or children in a lot of cases that I have to deal with on a daily basis. And these are the people that are the dregs of society. These are the people that need to be sought out. And how do we do that? By taking some of the money that we spend on some of the weapons and we shift it over into mental health, because a lot of these issues that we see today are focused or stemming from the mental health issues. I firmly believe that. You believe that? You agree with
absolutely. That? Totally. Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely a sense of despair going on throughout society for many people. And a lot of the root issues as to why that exists are, not included in the conversation, and certain tidbits of those problems are brought up and categorized under other broad scale umbrellas, like this whole racial thing that's going on, that's been taken to the next level because only one big drum is beat, and you only hear the sound of one drum beat on this thing, and it's just, oppression, and then there's no common sense reaction. Yeah, you can get into protesting, but next thing you know, you've got the whole cause for the protesting getting set back decades because of all kind of other ridiculous over the top actions that are taken by these extreme types. And it's not broken down into categories and really discussed in a way where productivity can come out of it. And that might be not the best example, but it's just the freshest one on my mind is right. The stuff going on with the protests, the despair felt across the board by so many, and then nothing much positive coming out of it because it's all encompassed under one big, thing now, when it actually consists of several different issues. And that's kind of like with the mental health thing and how that folds into crime and the prevalence of crime and in these areas where people don't have, the family structures. First of all, they don't have the family structures in a lot of these areas where crime is most prevalent. Right. And they've got educational system breakdowns and all kind of problems, and things tend to compound onto each other. So we've got some issues in society, and I definitely think mental health is the one that gets ignored perhaps more than any of them.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm in agreement with that because, even, and I've been guilty of part of this, is that we have a tendency of taking the people that are mentally not there, and we tend to excuse them. We tend to say, oh, you can't say the word retarded. Well, if you're retarded, you're retarded. Just what's wrong with the freaking word? If you're retarded, that is the medical term. It is actually a medical term called retarded. So if someone's retarded, then people have a tendency of pushing them off to the side or whatever they're trying to do. And I'm not saying that retarded people are responsible for killings, or people with autism, or people that have, whatever disorder that they have. But the problem is that we need to be able to identify the variations inside each of these, because autism in of itself is not inherently a medical condition or a mental condition that causes people to go out and kill people. But a very disproportionately large portion of the people that are convicted or people that have committed mass shootings are autistic. And my personal belief is that Stephen Paddock had some level of this, because based on what I see, Eric says no. Eric would know better than I do, so I will, concede that. But when you look around, we always see that, the cause, the guy had a mental problem, or we always hear that, he was always so nice, so reserved, and then later we start hearing, just like with Stephen Paddock. If everybody remembers in the beginning, the very first things we heard about Stephen were he was so quiet and he was this, he would never raise his voice, all of these different things. And then you start hearing these little side stories going on and say, okay, which Stephen Paddock was there that night? And some of the side stories were, obviously some of them were just completely fictitious. But, some of the other ones, you put a little bit of credence into them, up to and including Mary Lou Danley and her statements, because she made some statements that were rather questionable, that made us wonder what the situation was mentally with Stephen or Steve, and what was really going on. And I know that I based a lot of my opinion on what was going on inside the mind of Steve, based on what Mary Lou Danley said, based on what Eric said, and various other people that were close to him. I didn't put a lot of weight on what some of the other people said, and you guys can figure out a couple of people I may be talking about. But overall, it's still an issue that could have been resolved, or someone could have identified it if they would have seen the particular things. Eric, I asked him very early on. One of the first questions I asked Eric, and I know he's listening to this. One of the very first questions I asked him was there any indicators, anything at all, even so tiny? And he stopped me in mid-sentence and said that he beat himself up trying to go back and look for something, some sort of sign, something in the text messages, or something that he would remember in a conversation, or something maybe he saw Steve do. Nothing. There was just really nothing there. And then he would think of something and he'd go, well, maybe, and then no, because that was Steve. Steve is Steve. He was the oldest, and he was different than the other boys and stuff. And so, his reactions to things are a little bit different. But all of the boys drifted apart. They all went their pretty much on separate ways. Steve and Eric obviously maintained more of a relationship than anybody else. But was there a sign there? I mean, when you look out, meaning you, COG, center of gravity, when you look out in society, what do you see when you see these mass shooters? Are you in your? Because I know what I do when I see them. The first thought in my mind is, okay, is this guy a wackadoodle? Is this guy? Does he have a mental issue, or was he not hugged as a kid? I mean, you could think of mean things to say, and then you can go all the way to the clinical side of it, and everywhere in the middle. What are your thoughts when you see these things?
Well, with these people that commit these heinous crimes, most of them, it seems, have been around for years and years and years as accepted members of society. They do things the rest of us do. They hang out with others. They go to work. They see family on family, functions, and they've made it all this time, all these weeks in and weeks out, as a seemingly normal member of society. And so then you have to wonder, how do they get to that point? How long did the transition take from the point in time where they more or less went crazy, so to speak, to get to the point where they carried out this crime, going through the planning of it in their mind? Was it impulsive? Was it long stretched out over time, like in this particular crime? And you have to just try to put yourself in that person's mind as to, when did they change and start thinking in this direction? When did this whatever the hell kind of desire overcome them internally, that they completely internalized and did not show any outward signs of, and continued to behave as others would, normally see them behave? It's really unimaginable in a way. And it's kind of part of the big mystery of this mental health thing is, especially some of these people like Stephen Paddock, obviously a powerful minded person, quite capable with numbers and all these things that were his specialty. And so he takes all that energy and internalizes it into this evil direction. And, obviously I don't know if anybody's qualified to really, put this into something that we can understand.
Well, here's the way I think about it. Like when babies are born, we don't get an instruction manual, right? But then over time, some fancy writers determine, hey, I need to write a book about this. Of course, one of them was Spock, not Star Trek Spock, but Dr. Spock, and some
I
other
was
people.
actually looking for an instruction manual on making the baby, and I didn't get that either. But go ahead.
You didn't have sex education? I think I was watching National Geographic or something, and I was like,
Okay.
wow, I get to see boobies. But no, but the way I started thinking about it when I got into my investigative mind, which is very early on. I was in my late teens, early 20s when I started, obviously training for various things that actually is a side kind of they run parallel with law enforcement. Some of the things that we do run somewhat parallel with law enforcement. So your mind starts thinking that eventually you're not going to be doing this anymore in this capacity, and you have to like go into the civilian world and do it there. What would I be there? And your mind goes, well, detective and this and investigator, that and whatever. And none of those really clicked for me. So I ended up staying in kind of just by doing contract stuff. But the thought process is that we had things that we would look for. We were trained specifically to look for certain characteristics in people to determine if they were likely to do a certain act. Why can't they do this for the mass public? Because if you have these little things saying, okay, if your child starts killing frogs just for some reason, then there might be a problem, but we don't hear that. Parents don't get this information from their doctors. What they get is if your child is, doing whatever at age, whatever, then that's normal or it's abnormal. But what we don't get is the mental side of it. We get the physical side of it, where if a child's doing this or whatever, but very rarely do you get the mental side of it until there is a actual problem that comes out. And then they start backtracking. They start going back and they go, oh, okay, when did you first notice this? Well, when he was 3 years old, he started killing the neighbor's cats. Well, there's a problem.
Yeah, right.
That's when you should have said, hey, Johnny used to kill people's cats and he'd come home with dead frogs and stuff. But we just thought that was normal. And now he's 16 years old and he just blew up the whole high school. I mean, come on. That's what we kind of need.
That's a good point. Behavioral monitoring in this world from youngsters on up. It's like we don't have the capacity as a society to manage some of this stuff, and when in actuality we certainly should have that capacity. In this country, one thing that's pretty obvious these days is if it doesn't pay money, it pretty much doesn't get done. Right. And that's not an altogether bad arrangement. But at the same time, we've got, and our prison systems are even going for profit now too. So it's complicated, and it's society's well-being is seemingly secondary to profitability. So, and then one might argue that profitability is what enables society well-being, the well-being of society, and so there's definitely a balance in there somewhere. But I guess behavioral well-being or behavioral monitoring of people through their developmental years, you would think there would be a science around it by now, and something that perhaps the educational community was enlightened to or trained on to some extent, so that at least certain things could be addressed. And that's the one thing though, is that a lot of people are super weary of that kind of stuff. But where do you find productivity? I mean, if you're totally fearful of some sort of social oversight in terms of people's behavior, then and it's too much of an invasion of our privacy as free citizens, then you've got all these people filling up jail cells around the country. You've got this high murder rate in every state out there, and I mean every state, because when it comes to murder rate and murder by firearm, and if you look at the stats on that from state to state, some of the states that have the highest rates will surprise you. I think it surprised me when I looked into it, and I'm not going to go into politics here because we know that the most densely populated urban areas have high crime rates. But I was rather surprised to see some of the murder rates in some of the states that you don't hear talked about as often. Obviously, Illinois, Chicago having a pretty high one, but yet in the terms of death by firearm, it's not even, I think it was somewhere around 10th. So there's just a huge discussion to have around all this. And like I said, our political system really doesn't accommodate it. And our society is also reluctant to entertain a lot of it as well, because we're pretty closed-minded in certain areas. But it is what it is. CL had a good question. I didn't want to forget to mention it, but this idea that mental health being used as a reason for these killers, possibly being used too much, and that it seems like every mass shooting, mental health is kind of the what follows in terms of the concern. And it does seem like a trend, and I don't know what else there is to attribute it to, really. I mean, we go into the discussion of gun legislation and stuff like that. We already know that is not going to solve these sort of murderous crimes. We know damn well what murderers will do. They'll break the law, right, and we'll still have it.
So if you can see in the background there, you'll see I'm kind of scrolling through the different years here, and what I'm trying to do is kind of give everybody. I'm scrolling down to this particular graphic here. I don't know if you guys can read it on your screens or not, but this gives you an indicator. This is the total of mass shootings in 2019. The total number of wounded is 1,748. Total number killed 517. But if you look at this list here, now this doesn't happen. Figures the first one being Tallahassee, which is where I'm from. As you scroll up here in Jacksonville, Florida, you'll see how long this list is. These are mass shootings. Every line you see here is a mass shooting. This is 2019. I'm scrolling through. We're only in July, August, not even September, October, November, December. That's a lot. That's a lot of mass shootings. And then let's go back to 2017. I'll go forward 1 year at a time too.
That's classified as 3 or more victims. Am I correct?
Yeah, 4, I believe.
4.
Yeah. So do that there, and of course the list doesn't allow me to do the same search I did before. So there's 2000. Let's go to 2018, and remember there's totals I gave you. Of course, everybody wrote that down, right? Of course not. So scroll down here. This is
1,700 and 550 roughly.
There you go. So as you scroll down this list here, now we're in 2018, and it just doesn't seem to be a slowdown. And I'll do a year-by-year comparison here as well. But in 2018, there was injured 1,274, 387. So there's less than 2018. Now let's go to 2019, which is last year. And then actually, let me go back. I want to show you one thing. Let's look at the year to date so we can compare to what we're doing this year with coronavirus. Now, keep in mind, you would think coronavirus would affect this one way. So I'm going to go back to 2018, which we know is there. We're going to go down to this list down here. And let's just go through a month that we know we'll have a total for. So we're going to go through May. So through May, there's 123 plus blah, blah, blah. And I'm getting some feedback there. But you can see the numbers here. So we have 123. I'll pull up a calculator here just so we can compare notes here. Let's go calculator. So we're going to go backwards from May. So 123 plus 87 plus 68 plus 64 plus 89. So through May, if I can get the it's 431. So now we're just going to do 431 injured. And then I think that's the number of mass shootings. So there's some other demographics here. So we're just going to do the injured for this purpose, and then I can come back for another. I figured I'd screw that up. And it's 2019. Actually, I have to hit the enter button. There we go. Okay, so in 2019, going through May backwards, So we have, remember, 431. We're going to clear this and go 181 plus 136 plus 89 plus 68 plus 86. 560. So that's roughly 100 more in 2019 through May. Now let's go to 2020, which is the year, obviously, that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do the same thing. And now we go to May. So let's clear this. We got 252 plus 92 plus 112 plus 91 plus 112. 659. Anybody see a pattern?
Oh, yeah.
So, when COVID-19 and this coronavirus thing and the shutdown started, we thought that the numbers were going to go down. But if you look at it, you'll see 112 in January, 91 in February, and 112 in March, and 92 in April. Now, granted, in the overall scheme of these things, the numbers, when you compare it to all of the shootings around the United States, where 50 some odd thousand people, per year, whatever, are relatively small in comparison. And yes, mass shootings are a actual small portion of the overall killings by firearms in the country. I get that before anyone even comes in and says anything. But the mass shootings are what bring attention to the whole situation. And as such, that's what we remember. That's the catalyst that people use to change laws. I mean, do you agree with that?
To a large extent, that's usually the spark that lights the fire in terms of generating some sort of legislative change. Yes. Now, you had these long lists up here for each year, and we see the numbers and we see the trend of things continuing to grow, even during a pandemic where, people have been isolated and shut down to an extent and what have you. So it begs the question in my mind, we know 4 or more qualifies as a mass shooting. We see this ultra long list. And so I would really be interested to see the data broken down by, say, 7 or less, or 9 or less, in that group, 4 to 9, 10 to 15, 16 to 20, however it's broken down. So we could see, if 70% of them were between 4 and 9 victims, and we get an understanding of the nature of those types of crimes. Are they primarily, how much of that is gang related? What sort of events are these, and get an idea of what sort of behavior in our society is prompting the majority of these mass shootings. And even because it begs the question, hell, if we're halfway all locked down and not going to work and we're still seeing these numbers go up, who's doing all this shit? And it would be interesting to see the results.
Well, the other thing too, in my mind, it would be skewed a little bit because of the pandemic, people staying home, then that causes a different criminal element to come out. So the balance still is there. People say, well, people stay home, criminals are even staying home and they're not committing crimes. No, they're not. They're out there. They're out there going, hey, everybody's at home. That means their businesses are left wide open. Let's go do whatever. And I can say that from personal experience where I'm at right around here in Victorville. I know some people that were doing just exactly that, and so with that being the case, you sit there and you stare at these numbers and you can stare at them until the end of time. The problem is that you would have to get into each one of these with such detail and try to determine the demographics of all of these. And you can kind of do that with the FBI allows you to download all of their data points. And once you pull their data points into some sort of software that allows you to attempt to interpret what you're seeing, then you can get some curves. You can get some bell curves that would, which is one of Eric's favorite words is bell curves. Once you get on this side of the bell curve, or you're on that side of the bell curve, you can start understanding things a little better. But that's factually correct. Is that once you start learning how these curves work, you can start seeing them for what they are, and then you can somewhat predict what might happen. I mean, when we think about it. Go back 50 years. If you won the World Series 50 years ago, you wouldn't expect there to be a riot. If you win the World Series today, people are worried that there's going to be people burning cars and looting stores.
Yeah.
And this is when you win the World freaking Series or you
Mhm.
win whatever sport that you just won. This didn't happen 50 years ago. So something, and if hopefully I'm saying something a little bit new for people to think a little bit outside the box a little bit, but of course I don't remember 50 years ago. I was 3 years old, but 50 years ago, people did not think this way. What was going on 50 years ago that is not going on today, to where people utilize, and this is going to get us into a whole nother realm of different discussions, but where people utilize the current event or whatever's going on at the time as an excuse to go do something stupid.
Pawn Spy requested us to go back to 2004 if you still have your window open on that.
I don't think it goes to 2004.
Okay.
I think because this is the data that's gone over. I could edit and make 2004 real quick. We can go in my edit box. Search.
Well, your point, and I'm picking up your point here with just an overall change across the board with society, and your point about the riots after a World Series win or some sort of event like that kind of reminds me of some of the craziness we see overseas in their sporting events, the aftermath, and what is going on with this craziness and this herd-like mentality is also another component of it that surfaces within the conversation. And yeah, we got a lot of people around the world now, and we got a lot of I don't want to get into some damn I think that, you know the deal. I mean, I'm your age.
How do we say this? I get
I'm your age, and I watched a lot of shit change, 70s, 80s, 90s, and things ain't what they used to be, and that's sort of where the rubber meets the road, is that the world's a different place. Information's readily available. Kids are required to grow up faster than ever. Family structures have changed. Economic pinch is on more and more people every day. And everybody is out for, it seems like themselves to a large extent, but everybody is out for that almighty evasive dollar, including our municipalities. And it is sort of a wicked storm out there, and people get beat up in the middle of it real bad.
I agree with that. I think, there's this dismal feeling that I think we all kind of get now, where is this the new norm? Is this what's acceptable now? Do we have to sit here and go, well, yeah, I guess it's okay, and I'm going to say it straight out. I guess it's okay to show a white guy killing a black guy, and it go out, and for some reason YouTube is okay with that. But if you do the reverse, you're racially insensitive for whatever reason. And I was pretty well balanced out last week when they started shutting my stuff down. And I've seen like YouTube do censoring to a degree before. I mean, obviously I've had my channels taken down, but there's a certain thing where you start to see that there's truly an imbalance in society, and the imbalance is what's creating the new norm. And we are being conditioned to think a completely different way. And I'm not going for it. I'm not going for it.
I'm not going for it either, because of how overblown and out of proportion it's gotten, and how the fans have been flamed around it to turn it into this monstrosity of a storm that it's become. And at the same time, I try to step back and look at things more on a close-knit community level, like say how things are around here near around 40 miles in my surroundings, what it's like for me in day-to-day life when I go and I have 100 loads of dirt brought in, and I got 3 dump truck drivers bringing it in for 3 days straight. And I meet the guys, and 2 of them are Hispanic and one of them's African American, and I get to know them, and they're just cool as hell, and we have a great time. and that's just normalcy in terms of what goes on in your community around you. And then you've got this national spotlight on this absolute utter fucking mayhem that is going on, and it is totally conditioning us all in our mind and our subconscious, when in reality, in our communities, we tend to much more look out for one another. At least we still do around these parts of the woods, and regardless of race and so on and so forth. And you know, I mean, I'm not you know, if I find somebody laid out, I'm gonna go, you know, on the ground. I'm gonna go up and say, hey, you all right? You know, and I'm gonna be inclined to render aid. I might fall into a trap. There might be 3 people around the corner that are getting ready to jump me, but that's just my instinct, is to help them out. And I don't care if I never seen them in my life, you know.
Right.
But you know, is that all changing now because of all of this craziness? I mean, we've seen it change over the years. You don't see people stopping to help people on the side of the road anymore. That's for damn sure.
No, you don't. And then they penalize you for not doing it. And I've got to learn how to not talk right after I take a deep rip on the vape. But as I sound like you know, you sit there and you're penalized. They're like, okay, well, I'm kind of conditioned to not help somebody because of all the crap I see. And then I'm told, oh, well, the Good Samaritan law, if you don't do this, you're going to, and it's like, okay, so I'm so confused. Either one, I help the person and potentially that person dies and they sue me, and then I'm screwed for my life. Or B, I help the person and I get whatever disease they have and I'm screwed for life. Or C, I don't help the person and I'm going to go to jail for some reason, or I'm going to be sued. Or it's just, there's just too much crap to think about. We're back in the old days, back 50 years ago. People actually just were nice and they actually helped other people. Granted, there were some other issues too at the time, you know, but it just seems like it was different. I mean, maybe I watched too much Leave It to Beaver, and you know, Ward was a little rough on the beaver sometimes, and that made him grow up a little bit differently. Of course, that could be said a different way and it come out different. But you know, you have to contemplate every single action that you do now. You can't say certain words. I don't even know what to call people anymore. The other day I was talking to CL and I was trying to remember how to say LGB, whatever the freaking hell it is. I don't know the correct letters. I just feel I'm going to be in a situation where I have to say that, and I'm going to be like, I'm insensitive because I don't know the correct letters to say.
Right. You don't even know.
No, I don't. I sat there, and I'll admit, I don't. Hey, and I'm in some ways I'm like, I'm kind of glad I don't know, but in other ways I'm like, I should know because I'm supposed to be. I'm not a real reporter. I mean, I kind of play one on TV. But
hey, man, if you don't know, don't worry, because there's going to be another letter added onto it soon.
I know. And it's the same thing. I think we went through the same thing with you know, white people are white people. You just call them white people, and blacks you got to be careful what to say. You know, it's Afro-American, or if it's Black American, or if it's this or that, whatever. I don't even know. But that part doesn't concern me. What concerns me is the actual actions of the people when they're around other people. I don't see color that way. I personally, and people that obviously know me know how I operate. I don't act any different with anyone, regardless of who they are. I just don't. If you can't accept me for who I am, then I'm certainly not going to accept you for who you think you are.
Man, there's no doubt about it. I mean, at least when last I checked, which was not too long ago, we could all go to some area of town and get through a week-long seminar in a classroom full of people we never met in our lives, of all different backgrounds and ethnicities and so forth, and you know, take break time, have a smoke, hang out with them, maybe even get to know a few of them, get their numbers, and become friends thereafter. Who knows? But that happens every day around this country. But yet when you turn on social media or the television, all of a sudden there's this crazy ass war going on again within society based on all these different qualifiers, whether it be race or what have you, sexual preference, orientation, whatever. And you know, that's what we're being force fed over the waves. And I think the reason that that's being force fed to us over the wires is because there's these powers that be that want to jockey for control over certain major financially related aspects of our society. And they're jockeying for power, and they'll go to any level, no matter how low, to do it. And when it comes to these social issues, of course, it's the left wingers who will go to any low whatsoever to create division. And then the other party has its tactics too. And, you know, getting all into that's just it's bullshit, because the bottom line is, Mike, 10% of the U.S. population oversees 40% of the United States wealth, and that leaves 90% of the U.S. population to contend with 60% of that wealth. And big decisions are made around the players controlling that 40% of the wealth. And that is also the political donor class. Those are where the biggest political donations come from. They hold the clout with the politicians. The politicians pander to all of us for votes, the 90%. Then they turn around and write policy that's going to always bail out that 10%, the ones that hold 40% of the wealth. Their policies are always going to bail them out. We got socialism at the top. We got socialism for the elite. There's always a bailout program for the elite and the rich and the wealthy and the big CEOs who, you know, just feed themselves ridiculous bonuses and soak up their own stock and every other kind of bullshit move that doesn't do anything for the people that work for these huge organizations. We've got 191, to be exact, the top Fortune 500 countries that paid zero federal tax in 2019. I mean, man, they're playing a game and we're not a part of it.
Agreed.
But they are fiddle fucking with our heads to keep us divided and pissing and moaning to see which one of their favorites up there in the elite club is going to win the money game for the next 4 years.
Right. And then that's the thing. The distances are getting further and further apart. We don't see any sign of that slowing down. And because of that, the people that are on the bottom end feel like their lives are getting worse no matter what they do. So it's like this defeatist attitude. The people in the top end just don't give a shit, as evidenced by, if someone had to tell me to choose be Democrat or Republican, I'd have to go Republican. So don't get me wrong. But we also see that as evidenced by how our president responds to things. And he, I don't care who you are, he responds improperly to a lot of different things, whereas he could show a little bit more compassion here or there or whatever, and it might help ease some of the situations going on in the United States. But he didn't run for president to become the guy that's going to soothe our feelings. He became president because he wanted to get the America great again and get the economy and all this other stuff. So he did that. It's screwed up now, but it wasn't his fault. But so society has to look at each other, and we have to help each other out. We have to go. It's like a lot of you know my personal situation the last 2 years went from, one end of the spectrum all the way down to the deepest, darkest, sections of life you can go into, and then come back out again, and still be sane. Well, I guess that can be argued. But as we do that, we have to be self-reliant, and then we have to look at someone else that's next to us and go, you know what? I need to help this person and this person, and all of us pull together, and all of us sing Kumbaya at the end of the day. But guess what? We all know it's not going to happen. So we all become self-defeatists, and we become, team defeatists, and that it seems like it's all for nothing sometimes. And that scares me.
These political parties hire mouthpieces to go out. These candidates go out and pander to their base with the ideals that they think that their base holds true and dear. So when you talk about Trump, for example, he's going to go out, he's going to tell us that, enough with this political correctness bullshit, which a lot of the base that, is true to Trump is going to feel that way, that, hey, look, man, I've got respect for other members of society, and I don't want to have to trip over my words to try to pussyfoot around their feelings. So that's a pretty common, mindset among those who share that ideal and would be among Trump's base or among the Republican Party's base. So these parties are back there, taking everybody's pulse, so to speak, throughout society to see what the general consensus is, and then they're using their marketing guy, which of course is the politician, whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever the hell they got. It's amazing that that's about the best they can pull in right now.
Right.
But anyway, they're out there. It's all marketing. You know the deal. It's all marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all catering to an ideal, and then with their media wings, these ultra rich media mogul wings can fester the flames to increase the emotions around these ideals and get people more enthusiastic so that more of them turn out to vote. And so more of them share the important message of the day, and they just whip up this shit into a fucking frenzy. And that's the game that gets played, among others. But yeah, it's a total feeding frenzy with some of this shit. I mean, this.
Yeah. It's almost a point where people are looking for ways to get airtime. It's just like, one of the songs in Money Machine is he's turning tragedy into opportunity, and that's exactly what's going on. I mean, Sisolak did it. He obviously took the Las Vegas shooting and turned it into a campaign type thing. He tried to, like we couldn't see that was going on. But you have society in general, which has, again, I go back to this, is this the new accepted norm? Are we now seeing an accepted normal? And I don't mean the pandemic part, because this is obviously not the accepted normal. Hopefully, a year from now, we'll all think back of this. Remember last year we had to wear masks to go into Walmart, but we might still be wearing masks. And I guarantee you that a large portion of society will have been conditioned to the point where they wear masks. If you go to China, or if you go to any Asian country, I don't know how many people in here has been to an Asian country, but if you go to China, Thailand, Taiwan, Japan, any Asian country, a very large portion of the populace wear masks whenever they're sick. We don't do that here. We really don't. We do kind of now, but we kind of now do it in a defensive measure, because that's kind of the way we were conditioned for it. And once we see that this goes away, then the masks will go away. When in fact, we probably should kind of take on that thing. Like if you're out in public and you have a cold, wear a freaking mask. How many times has anyone in here been in line somewhere, like at a fast food restaurant, and then some guy behind you sneezing his head off, and you really just feel like you want to leave the restaurant? But if he would have had a mask on, you probably wouldn't have that thought. And
Mike? Do you know, Mike, that with a mask on, you can whisper something in a chick's ear and not have to worry about your breath being bad?
Yeah, I just found that out. How'd you know that? Who are you talking to, dude? All right. Where's the cameras in here? There are. All right, I'm walking around here. I'm looking for cameras, bro. Because how did you know that? I used to take like Vicks Vapor Rub and just rub it on my mustache, and then everybody thought my breath was so minty and fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you taking it from personal experience on your end, or is this something that you're projecting into my life?
Well, I just figured it out the other day. I thought, man, I haven't brushed my teeth in a week, and it really doesn't matter because I got this mask on. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah. So a year from now, the dentists are going to be going, wow, business is really good. I wonder how this happened. It's going to be because all these guys that aren't brushing their teeth anymore, because you don't have to see them. I don't have to worry about brushing them. Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. That's funny. That's funny. All right. Well, I'm going to slow this thing down a bit. It is 11:14, and we'll shut this thing down. And for anyone that's listening to this looking for Shannon Dale Chamlies, I didn't get as many people in here as I thought I would. And Shannon's probably, out there just, going, yay, Mike's guys. I am the person he probably hates almost most on the planet right now. But to you, Shannon, I'm just letting you know, we know where you are. We know what you're doing. You're not like some super slick guy that you think you can keep slipping through the cracks. The only reason why you're slipping through the cracks is because there's really just not a whole lot of resources to waste time on your sorry ass. But the fortunate thing is that we are coming to get you. We are coming. It will be soon. I don't know exact day, the hour, the minute, but keep watching your 6. We know where you are. I know the numbers 3220 have special meaning for you. And hang out at the McDonald's if you want. Maybe you can go over there and I'll buy you a Big Mac or something like that before we put you in the car and cart your ass off to Arkansas where you belong because you have warrants and you're an absconder and we just don't like you anymore. So anyway, so that's my message to Shannon. He'll probably say I'm bullying him or whatever. I don't really care because he's an absconder and he has basically scammed a whole bunch of people. But he'll argue whatever he does, and sometimes he wins that argument, and I don't want to see that happen. But anyway, so we'll come back and revisit the Shannon Dale Chamlies thing at some future date and hopefully get more people involved in that. But a lot of people are really scared of how he's going to respond to them. So we'll go past that. As far as the Las Vegas thing, here's what's going on, obviously, with this particular situation with the lawsuit that's being filed against the estate of Stephen Paddock. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. So I may not be able to get to exactly what I need to do tomorrow because I'm going to be at a secret Air Force facility doing stupid stuff. And then once I get out of there, if I get out of there early enough, then I'll make some phone calls to Las Vegas to some certain attorneys and try to get their side of whatever the hell it is their mind thought is. And granted, I think it actually is looking at the lawsuit as their creditors. They're looking to get money. Just like you said earlier, you know, I keep wanting to say your actual name and I have to go, stop. I can't, I want to just say secrets, but you're center of gravity now. And it's like, and everybody be like, who's he talking to? The guy's name is Center of Gravity. Why is he calling him secrets? I
don't know if I can do that. Very close to me call me secrets.
All right. Well, I'll be calling you secrets because that's pretty much how I can remember you by. So anyway, so I appreciate you coming on. I always do. You're always the rock and the savior of these bumbling things because I'll just talk forever about stupid random stuff.
Well, you have so much going on, you know, and you have so many topics to consider while you're trying to cover the ones that are on the top of your plate at the time. And I mean, I can sense that, and you're just going, okay, let me get through this because these other things are kind of on the back of my mind right now. And, you know, you're thinking if somebody else wanted to talk this shit through with me, it would take its own direction perhaps and maybe be easier. You know, you got the heavy stuff out of the way. And
you can hear me in the background going, secrets, save me, save me. And there you were. That was amazing. So I guess you heard that.
No, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy it. So anxious to see you kick off another one, and I'll be hopefully around to participate if it's fitting. So that's pretty awesome, man.
Absolutely, appreciate that. And just so everybody knows, Money Machine. If you have any questions about Money Machine, I will go into those as we get closer. Next week, I'll be filming. What is next week? July 1st and the last day of this month, plus July 1st and 2nd, I will be in Las Vegas filming for something entirely different than the Las Vegas thing, which is weird that we're filming it in Las Vegas. Don't ask. It's a long, involved story. But July 3rd is the day that Money Machine opens for non-theatrical at-home release. So that basically means you can watch Money Machine at home, the full show, and see it in its entirety for I think it was $8 or something like that. So it's super inexpensive, easy thing to do. You can do it in the leisure of your home, and you know, and also I don't want to say this. I mean, everybody should actually buy their own ticket. But hey, you know, if you got a couple of people at your house, for $8, everybody can watch the same screen. But do watch it and do support the theaters that are there. You'll see that list that drops down. If you search Money Machine inside of Facebook and you go over there and you do the non-theatrical release ticket on screen, search for maybe a theater you're familiar with or whatever, because a portion of the proceeds will actually go to that theater. And if it's a local theater to you, then you know, support your local theater. If you don't know any of the theaters, just click one at random. That way someone gets kind of a credit for the sale, so to speak. But ideally, you know, you want to support your local theaters and so forth. But again, that comes out on July 3rd. It will premiere in Las Vegas on, I can't say the actual date because I think that's still a secret, but between July 13th and July 16th, it will debut at the Anthem Film Fest in Las Vegas I think it's at Caesar's Palace. I'm pretty sure. I will be there. Ramsey will be there. And it should be a pretty cool event. The event is a kind of a closed event. It's just for industry professionals or whatever. And I'm finally on that side of the fence now, which is kind of cool, kind of different. But we'll see how that plays out. But that's where it's going to be. And if I'm there and if anyone's there, I'll be there probably for a month or maybe at least 2-3 weeks. After July 3rd, I'll probably just stay there. So just keep in touch with me. If you see me doing live remotes from like Melissa's Memorial or, flying around, like I guess I saw the screen sharing. I don't even know if you guys are seeing the Delano go by the screen, then yeah, the screen's still sharing. But I'm going to be doing some other things while I'm there. And I would personally like to meet as many people as possible and show you some things that's coming out, so to speak. So just keep up with me, and I'll explain more of that later. Secrets, again, thank you for dropping by. Thanks everybody in the chat area for coming by. If I missed one of your questions, I apologize. I will try to go back and watch this and answer those as best I can. If I don't, next time I come on, slap me silly, and then maybe I'll answer it then. But until next time, I appreciate you. Thank you, Secrets, again. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you to my moderators, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.